last spoke, regulation would have caught up with this problem and we would have seen an end to greenwashing. You don't think that's the case?
Oh, no, it's definitely not the case. The ACCC did actually bring out some new guidelines at the end of the year, but it hasn't filtered through. I don't think there's been enough people caught yet, People haven't realised that it's true. People are still labelling themselves in some very odd ways. Yeah.
We're going to talk about the various standards and the fines a little later because it's somewhat confusing. Let's just first establish how lucrative this is, because most of the surveys tell us that consumers are very interested and are prepared to pay more for products that they see as being environmentally responsible.
Yes, and it's only fair that they actually are environmentally responsible. It's actually fraud if people are claiming things are environmentally friendly and they're not.
That obviously leads us to working out what is green and what isn't green, and there seems to be a few different shades of it. You identified 3 key things, and the first involves fluffy animals. Stay away from fluffy animals.
Yep. Not necessarily, but if there's no relevance to the fluffy animal or the eco or environmentally friendly term.
And we're talking about labelling.
In the labelling of a product. I mean, I came across one person the company that works in the mining industry and has dolphins all over their business card, and I sort of scratched my head on that one. And I'm not sure what pandas have got to do with a lot of things. So unless there's some justification, steer clear of those. Steer clear of a word like eco, whatever it is, or environmentally friendly, unless you know what the eco actually is about.
All right. The second one is green ticks. Are you suggesting that companies use a green tick even if they're not certified to do so?
Oh, there's a huge plethora of increasing numbers of green ticks. More and more green ticks of one kind and another. And people even put their own green ticks on. But there are also websites where you can pay a fee and get a green certification by just clicking on the website, paying your fee and getting the green tick.
Okay. The third is scientific data. You say that in many cases that's intended purely to confuse.
I think so, yes. And that's one of the things the ACCC are also warning about, is that a lot of companies are putting in a lot of percentages and data and graphs to make it look as if something's proved when it's not necessarily. It's very confusing for the public. They don't want to look at graphs and things to decide which product to buy.
And yet you do tend to believe it, don't you, if it looks very scientific?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Okay, let's talk about this certification process because it is kind of confusing. You're critical of the way the system works. In fact, you go as far as to say that the system is almost greenwashing itself.
Well, I think a lot of the things are just straight greenwash. As far as I can see, the only real certification that's got a lot of credibility is the international standard, which is recognised around the world, and that's ISO 14001, because it's audited by qualified auditors who are themselves audited, and they audit the company every 6 to 12 months, year in, year out, to check they really are doing what they say they're doing. It's not just a one-off, pay your money and get a tick.
And that particular certification relates to the company and measures what?
It measures the whole behaviour of the company. It's not just a product that's got something green about it. It's actually looking at their energy use. It's looking at the procedures that they run their business by. It's looking at whether they've made a commitment to comply with environmental legislation, and whether they're doing what they say they do.
Now, so what would you see on the label, though? Would you actually see that ISO 14001? Is that what you should be looking for?
That's what you should be looking for. It may have different shaped and coloured ticks. They're usually green, but they may well be all sorts of different shapes because different auditors use different shaped logos. But it always has that ISO, which is international standard, and then 14001.
Okay, so that's about as good as it gets?
Yes.
The second process is a little more ambiguous, and it certifies individual products. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And there's a whole range of product certifications. Some of them are reasonably robust, but a lot of them are not very robust. They're pretty marginal, and there's doubts about how good the auditing is and how qualified the auditors are.
You suggest that some in that field have a vested interest, and that's obviously part of the problem.
Yes, it is. Yes. I don't like slandering people, but yes, it is.
But even so, I mean, the public, and you make the point that the public has a right to know that there are various standards, various certification processes, and some of them are a little more ambiguous than others.
There is an international process for certifying products, but the products that are certified in this country are not generally certified fully according to the international standard, only against those guidelines.
All right, so how, in your view, then, do you make this less confusing for the public and yet maintain or make sure that it's the most effective in terms of making sure that environmental practice is maintained or improved?
It's one of those really interesting questions, isn't it? I think it's up to the auditing bodies to actually get their act a bit more together and do a bit more proactive marketing of what they're actually doing. I think it's up to auditing bodies to make sure that they really are auditing well, so that people have total faith in certified companies. And I think it's up to the companies that have been audited and are doing the international standard to make sure they're marketing their standard properly and letting people know, hey, we are a company that has the international standard.
I wonder, it seems a little confusing to me when you're talking about a specific product with the whole life cycle of that product. Can a company claim their product is green if, say, ingredients are green, but on the flip side, their energy use is intensive, the transport costs, their suppliers aren't environmental? How does that work?
Well, that's one of those things that's a whole supply chain, and that's a brilliant story you've brought up, scenario, because if you've got buy an environmentally friendly carpet, for example, that's made in that particular product has been certified. That wherever the fibres come from, how is it being transported to your place? How is it being laid in your place? What's the product life cycle of it? None of those things are in the least bit clear.
And so how does that work? What does the ACCC do in terms of that?
Well, the ACCC is still working through a lot of those areas.
So we are really still playing catch-up.
We're playing catch-up enormously, absolutely. The reason I like the ISO 14001, or one of the reasons, is because it actually looks at whole supply chain. It looks at where the energy, what the energy use is. It looks at all the suppliers. It looks at your waste disposal.
All right, we've mentioned the ACCC several times. It's the body in Australia that holds companies to account. There has been some pretty significant prosecutions, hasn't there?
Yes, actually they gave a major fine to Saab because the marketers there made a false claim and claimed that the credentials of one vehicle applied to the entire range. They also made Woolworths pull a whole range of product off the supermarket shelf and relabel it because they had made claims that were over the top. And some companies actually get caught without any real intention, like Cooper's recently, Cooper's Brewery, who've been very unfortunately caught by a junior marketing person putting an advert in that was over the top and putting it in without running it past the boss, which makes it really hard.
Absolutely, and that's actually pretty interesting itself. Would you say with most of these cases that they are honest mistakes, or are they cases of companies taking advantage of consumers' environmental concerns?
Probably in those three cases that are mentioned, they may well be over-enthusiastic marketers because marketers know they have to sell on emotion. But there are people that are deliberately calling themselves eco or green or some such that are not in any way environmentally friendly.
Do you think there is a risk of consumers becoming cynical about this, which in turn is a disadvantage to those companies who really should be supported for doing the right thing?
Yes, I think it needs to be cleaned up quite quickly so consumers know where they are, because consumers are in a difficult position. They're trying to watch their dollars, particularly at the moment, and they really do want to do the right thing. They don't want to pay extra for something that's not green when they believe it is.
And on the flip side of that, there are lots and lots of companies who are doing the right thing and have spent some money to do that and should be congratulated.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Jean Cannon, thank you.
Thank you.